Welcome to the living room 2921 Duff Road, where we're learning how to live healthy, even though we're living in a toxic world. And tonight's night is Choose It to Lose It, Tony Robertson. It is my pleasure to introduce Tony. He is a fabulous person. He loves helping people. He has a very deep well thinking patterns like an engineer. Reverse engineer this problem. Let's figure it out. Let's get to the root of the problem. He loves helping people. He's a God-fearing man. He's a wonderful husband, wonderful father. And he's a certified nutritionist, and he's been working with these amazing world quality formulas for 20, probably 25 years. And he has seen some miraculous things happen. He's very excited to share with us tonight. If your diet consists of low fat, then you will have low health, and it puts you in a position of high risk. So
Amen.
Take it away, Tony.
Awesome. Thank you, Lavon. Thank you. Good evening, everybody, the folks there in the room and those online with us. Johnny, good to see you again. All right. And I see Miss Denisha there as well. The others, I just see names and no pictures, but that's okay. Been there, done that. So, yes, Lavon was saying we're going to talk low fat, low health, high risk. But before we do that, I want to just jump in real quick and talk about beef, just for 2 minutes. Because people have noticed I tend to eat a bit more beef than most folks. And they all ask, do you buy grass-fed? Do you buy grass-finished, grain-fed? What are you buying? And blah, blah, blah. So I try to do the best I can with what we have. But I did find something. And, because people say, do you still take your supplements? Yeah, I take my supplements because our food isn't as good as what it should be. But here was a little something of grain-finished beef versus grass-fed. So 100% grass-fed versus grain-finished. Now, they could have had, pasture raised, but grain-finished. And what the study found was that the ones that were grain finished had higher inflammatory markers than the grass-fed beef. So those cows, in fact, they took a piece of the steak and they said the one from the grass-fed looks like the muscle from an athlete. And then they took the same cut of steak from the grain-finished cow, and they said that muscle, that tissue, looks like that of a person with metabolic syndrome. So, and it's all because of the grains. 7 years ago when I got started on this bandwagon of grains are going to kill us, one of the first analogies, I suppose, that I used to use and explain to people was, the farmers doing exactly that. They finish their cattle on grain. And why do they do that? If there's any farmers in the crowd, they do that to add the fat in the meat to create that marbling, because everybody likes the marbling in their steak. That gives it the flavor, okay? So cows are part of the animal kingdom, and so are you and I. We're part of the animal kingdom. So if they're feeding corn and soy chips to the cows to fatten them up, what happens to us when we eat corn and soy and grains? We get nicely marbled as well. So if you're ever stuck on an island and the cannibals are there, they're going to feed you grains to fatten you up and get you nicely marbled. All right. So we've got to be careful. Something else that they found was grass-fed cows. When it comes to omega-3s, we know some of the ingredients in omega-3s are DHA and EPA. Those are two of the family members. There's 8 of them. But they found with the grass-fed cows, they had 3 times higher DHA than the grain-finished cows, and 10 times higher EPA than the grain-finished cows. So the omega-3s were a lot higher in grass-fed cows versus grain-fed. Now, we all know omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. We know omega-3s are good for the brain. Omega-3 is good for heart health, for blood pressure, for all the things that go along with metabolic disease. So if grass-fed cows have higher omega-3 numbers, then it makes sense to try and eat grass-fed cows, especially if they found that the inflammatory markers in the grain-fed cows are much higher than the grass-fed cows. So we can get omega-3s from things other than fish. You can get it from beef as well, okay? So when you go to a restaurant and you have that surf and turf meal, you're getting omega-3s with omega-3s. How's that? All right. Just make sure not to add any fries that were fried in canola oil. That's just going to destroy everything. And something that I have really seen a lot lately is studies that are showing that seed oils, which cause inflammation, seed oils are a lot more dangerous to our health than what sugars are. They cause a lot more problem than what sugar does. Now, I'm not saying sugar is good. Sugar is just better than than seed oils, but they're both bad. It's just one's better than the other one. And it's the seed oils that are causing more problems and more ailments and more pain than what the sugars are. So be careful out there. Be careful. They also found that grass-fed beef has higher phytochemicals like carotenoids and those sort of things in them. And they also have higher vitamin C levels than grain-fed. They have 3 times more vitamin E in grass-fed cows versus grain-fed. They got higher choline, which helps reduce fatty liver disease. And they have higher levels of carnosine, which helps with fat burning. What they did find, though, was, weirdly enough, with the grain-fed animals, a lot of the nutrients levels were on the low side, except the vitamin B3. They found that was fairly high. But the reason it was high is because they were being fed enriched grains. That's why the B3s were higher in grain-fed beef, which doesn't mean it's a good thing. It's just that's the reason why it's higher. Okay. So what can we do? If you cannot find a good quality grass-fed beef and you have to eat beef at some point, fine. Then you take the second best, but you need to add a lot of our products to that. You got to boost the value of that beef, and you can add things like the vitamin C to your diet. Lipotropic and lecithin, they both have choline in them, so that'll up the choline intake. Salmon oil, because the grain-fed beef has such high inflammatory markers, that's going to cause problems for you. So you take the salmon oil, that'll help bring some of those inflammatory markers down. Okay. I was actually at a friend's house yesterday, and she said in the beginning of August, she decided she's going to do carnivore diet. And she said, I'm going to do this for 2 weeks and see how it goes. And she did it for 2 weeks. It went well. She said, I'm going to do it for another 2 weeks. She did it for another 2 weeks. She said she felt fantastic. She felt superb. And then the 30 days was up and she thought, okay, yeah, I did this. I feel great. And then she celebrated with ice creams and waffles and pancakes and all sorts of stuff. She says it was 2 days, 3 days, and everything hurt. Her elbows hurt, her wrists hurt, her back was sore, her knees hurt again, her hips were all out of whack. All right. So that's when she realized, no, hang on a second. Anyway, so she got back and she's been doing it now. I think she said about 3-4 weeks now, 3 or 4 weeks. Anyway, she went for blood work, and doctor is super impressed. He says her C-reactive protein, which is a measure of your inflammation in your body, He says her C-reactive protein nosedived. It's just about non-existent. And she said, and she didn't realize the correlation between that and the pain, the inflammation. And I said, yeah, you said all your pain and inflammation is gone. The C-reactive protein test is the one that tells you that your inflammation levels are down. She's okay, now it makes sense. So she's as pleased as a pig in Palestine that things are now working for her. She feels good, she's enjoying her food, but she did say she found that she's a bit hungry. And I said, well, then, Miss Sherry, you need to add more fat into your diet. And this brings us onto our topic for this evening: low fat equals low health. So we've all heard about the low fat diets over the last 40 years, 50 years. Okay, you go buy milk, it's got 2% cream in it, or it's a 0% milk. You go buy yogurt, you go buy cream cheese, you go buy cottage cheese. It's all 2% stuff, 0% stuff. It also tastes like 0%. So what has happened over the last 40 years? Well, all sorts of problems. You know, diseases have gone up, and bowel issues have gone up, and metabolic diseases all gone up. It's ridiculous. So if a person is on a low-fat diet, and I'm talking 15% of your calories come from fat, that's a low-fat diet, right? Because then the other 85 has to come from proteins and carbohydrates. And they only want about 25% coming from from protein. So that means 60% of your calories are coming from carbohydrates, which is a lot. It's way too much. It's just way too much. But what happens in the case of now you're on a low-fat diet? Well, you're going to have decreased levels of all your fat-soluble vitamins because you don't have fat in your system. So your fat-soluble vitamins are like things like vitamin A, D, E, K, ADEK. Those are your fat solubles, A, D, E, K. All right. And the thing about vitamin D, it has two functions. Vitamin D is actually a hormone, but it's also sometimes works as a vitamin. All right. So we're just going to count them right now as a vitamin. So why is vitamin A important? Well, it's part of the immune system. Keeps your immune system strong. Vitamin A is also good for night vision. And you can get beta carotene from butter, and beta carotene is a precursor to vitamin A. You can also get it in carrots, right? I've told my kids long ago, carrots are good for you, good for your eyes. You ever seen a rabbit wearing glasses? Nope. Okay, so there you go. Must be good for the eyes. Vitamin A is also good for the upper respiratory tract, from the lungs up, sort of thing. This area over here is good for the mucus lining of this area, your throat, your nasal passages, and your your sinus cavities and all that. Vitamin A is very good for that. And vitamin D, we all know from COVID, vitamin D was suggested because it's part of the immune system. It keeps your immune system strong. So you need to get the vitamin D, but if you're on a low-fat diet, that's going to be a problem. And again, if you're low in vitamin D and you're not getting any sunshine on your body is not going to make cholesterol. I'm sorry, it's the other way around. You're not going to have any fat in your diet, and the cholesterol and sunshine is not going to make vitamin D. So you're not even manufacturing enough vitamin D, plus you're not getting it out of a fat-filled diet. So you're going to be super low in vitamin D. Okay, so we've got to get some fat in there. Vitamin D also helps keep viruses in check. So we need vitamin D, and it also helps reduce inflammation. So there's a bunch of different things going on with A, just A and D alone. All right, vitamin E, essential for the heart. You got to get some grease in your system. And if you don't have enough fat in your diet, you're not going to have enough vitamin E. You're going to have some heart challenges. And it's also good for the hormones. And then vitamin K is your blood clotting factor. K for clot. So if you cut yourself, you want bleeding to stop. And that's where the vitamin K comes in. That helps to, it thickens the blood. It's got the clotting factor in there, and it'll help stop that bleeding. All right. Super important. And if you don't have fat in your diet, you're not going to get your essential fatty acids. Now, they're called essential for a reason. It's because your body cannot make them. So you got to get them out of your diet. So we need to get some fat in our diet. And also, fat is important for the structure of a lot of things in your body, especially your cell membrane. That cell wall, every cell in your body needs fat to help build that cell membrane. We all heard about treonine. Now, treonine supplies the oils that the cell needs to keep the cell membrane healthy. All right. That's one type of oil you need. You need some more. You need some cholesterol in there to help keep that cell membrane strong and healthy and to help build it. So that was just some of the vitamins that's missing if you don't have fat in your diet. What else is there? There's the risk of mental problems. Now, I'm sure we all know somebody, and it's typically within our families, that has mental problems. All right? I know in my family, they say if it's not you, it must be the one next to you. So I don't have mental challenges. I don't think. So we've got to be careful. We've got to be really careful. But anyway, the brain is mostly fat. It's about 60% fat. So your brain is just this blob of fat sitting there in your noggin. So you need fat to keep it healthy and to build it. And then you also need your nerves that run from the top of your head all the way through your body. That nerve has a coating around it to protect the nerve. It has that insulation around it, that myelin sheath. That is made from fat. It's made from cholesterol. So if you aren't feeding the brain enough fat and you don't have enough protection around that nerve, you're going to lose signal, if you will. You know, it's like the Wi-Fi is down for some reason. Signal's not moving here. And that's going to lead to cognitive problems, memory issues, Alzheimer's, all those sort of things. It's going to affect your mood. If your brain isn't functioning properly, it's going to affect your mood, whether you like it or not. So you got to get some fat in there. I know I do get very grumpy when I can't have my bacon and eggs. So if I can't have my fatty breakfast, yeah, I do get moody. So we need to make sure we're getting our grease in our diets. All right. Again, when you have no essential fatty acids running around in your system, that increases your cancer risk. So we've got to get those oils in there to help lower that risk of cancer. A low-fat diet decreases your HDL cholesterol. Depend what they call the good one. Not that there's a good and a bad cholesterol. I mean, imagine this pen is a cholesterol molecule. In my hand over here, is this a good or a bad pen?
It's a good pen because it does its function.
Okay, but if it runs out of ink, it's still a pen. But is it good or bad? Yeah, where I'm holding it.
It's neutral.
Exactly. The same with that cholesterol molecule. The cholesterol molecule is not evil. It's just a cholesterol molecule. That's all it is. All right. It's not good or bad. It's just a cholesterol. So we shouldn't be labeling our cholesterol as good and bad cholesterol. The only bad cholesterol is oxidized cholesterol. But that's why you take carotenoids to help prevent the oxidation of the actual cholesterol molecule. The HDL and the LDL's got nothing to do with cholesterol. Nothing at all. So, except they can sell you some drugs to monitor, to change your LDL. So, it's a $5 or $7 billion a year industry, statin drugs. So why would they change anything? Nah. Anyway, so a low-fat diet is going to decrease your HDL. Now, we kind of call it the good one because it picks up leftover cholesterol. But if you don't eat a fatty diet, if you're on a low-fat diet, your HDL number is really low. So it's like your street sweeper that comes along. When you've got only 2 street sweepers to take care of the entire city, when you actually need about 200. Okay, so you do need HDL, and you need a lot of it, like Cindy Everidge. All right, we shouldn't be giving out stats, but her HDL, I've never seen a number that high in my life. It's up there. It's way up there. But all her other numbers are perfect. So nothing to worry about. A low-fat diet also increases your triglycerides. How many people have been told, cut the fat out of your diet, your cholesterol is too high, your triglycerides are going through the roof? Anybody ever heard that before? All right. Well, it's a lot of nonsense. The only thing that increases your triglycerides is carbohydrates, not the fat that's on the piece of steak, not the cholesterol that's in the egg yolk, not that stick of butter you ate for breakfast. That doesn't do anything to your triglycerides. Okay, so you need to get some fat in the diet. And then a low-fat diet also leads to an increase in carbohydrate intake. Now, why is that? Because you've got 3 macronutrients: proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Protein is not essentially a fuel for your system. It can become one, but its primary goal isn't as a fuel. Its primary purpose is to build you. So your 2 other ones, your carbohydrates and your fats, those are your fuel to run your system. So if you cut down on the one, you're going to run out of gas. Not so? If you have a hybrid vehicle and you're running on battery power, when the battery goes down, the petrol has to take over. The gasoline has to take over. Not so. So if you cut down your fat, your carbohydrates have to take over to keep you energized. So if you're living on a low-fat diet, there's almost 100% chance that you're living on a high carbohydrate diet. Okay, and I'm going to show you some studies that were done. The results of some of these, there must have been, I don't know, 10, 12 studies. It was a meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials, which is the gold standard, if you will, for doing trials. And I'll show you some of the summaries of that. And another thing, if you're on a low-fat diet, if anybody's ever been on a low-fat diet or knows somebody that's been on a low-fat diet, in fact, this lady I was speaking to yesterday, her husband, he's been on a low-fat diet for most of his life. He's also been in the gym doing cardio for most of his life, pumping iron for most of his life, and he's still carrying extra weight around with him. I've never seen anybody work out as much as this dude. All right. I get to his house, he's in the garage, and he's going. He's sweating out like he's drenched in sweat from all the cardio he's doing. And you know what? You cannot out-exercise a bad diet. You just cannot. Okay? So, low-fat diet, high carbohydrate diet, you are always going to be hungry, because you're not getting enough fuel from your food. That's why if people are on a low-fat diet, and what we've been told over the last 50 years, you need to eat 5-6 times a day. Anybody ever heard that? Or just me, here in Arizona, all right? You have a breakfast, you have a snack, you have a lunch, you snack again, you have dinner, and you have a midnight snack before you go to bed. Damn, that body of yours is not going to get a chance to rest at all. That pancreas is just going. That's what happens when you're on a low-fat diet. So it also slows down your metabolic rate. So we do not want to do that. We want our metabolic rate to be high. We want to burn this energy that we're feeding our bodies. All right, so it can get used and keep you energized and keep you going. So you need to eat fat to lose fat. Sounds weird, but if you eat fat, it lowers your insulin. And if you have lower insulin, you have a higher leptin hormone. And leptin is the one that tells you you're hungry or you're full. But if you have insulin, too much insulin in your bloodstream, that leptin signal never makes it to the brain. So your brain never gets told that you're full. So you're always hungry. It's because your insulin is elevated, because you ate carbohydrates. Now, if you eat fat, fat doesn't release insulin. So you can eat a block of butter. Well, good luck trying to do that. You'll get pretty full before you finish that thing. My point is, if you eat a block of butter, you're not going to get an insulin response. You're not going to get insulin released into your bloodstream. So now that leptin can get released into your bloodstream and go to your brain and tell your brain, stop eating, we've got enough. Okay. On a low-fat diet, that doesn't happen. And here's something to think about. When you do a fast, whether it's 16, 18 hours, 20 hours, 21 hours, 24, 36-hour fast, you are essentially in that fasting period on a high-fat diet. Why? Because you're not putting food into your mouth. So where is your body getting energy from? From your hips, from your belly, from under your arms, all right, from your thighs. And what is that energy? It's energy stored as fat. So the fat that's sitting on your rear end, or that's sitting under your arms, or around your midriff, all that fat is stored energy. And if you are not eating, if you are in a fasting state, your body needs to keep burning some sort of fuel to keep your heart going, to keep your brain going. And it's going to then live on the fat that is stored. So really, if you are fasting, you are on a high-fat diet because all your body is doing is eating fat. So remember that. Take that note with you tonight. All right. Let me see before I do one or two other things here. Okay. So the question comes up. And if is Deborah there, Levon?
I am.
Okay, Deborah, you always the lady that's quick on the draw when it comes to the cell phone there. All right. So I want you to have your calculator ready.
My calculator.
Yeah. All right. Because I want you to just do a few numbers there, just examples. Hang on.
Are we doing protein ratios for body weight?
No.
Okay.
We're talking fat.
I need that
Tonight.
too.
Do you need that protein ratio?
I do.
Okay, let me hang on a second. Let me make a note because it is important. I had to go over this with that lady yesterday because she wasn't eating enough.
I know I'm not eating enough, and I want to share it with others, and I want to be able to tell them correctly.
Okay. We'll get back on track in a minute, but I want to share my screen with you because I know nobody believes me. So I'm gonna show you studies. There it is there. Okay, can we all see this? Levon, just shout if you can see what I'm presenting.
PubMed. Yes.
Okay, risks of a low-fat diet. So here was the study. All right, I'm not going to go into it, but here's the summary. Low-fat diet led to lesser weight loss than a low-calorie diet. Furthermore, low-fat diet resulted in an increase in blood lipids.
It's not showing that, Tony.
So what are you seeing?
I'm seeing oral something is effective in treatment of vitamin B12 deficiency and Crohn's disease.
Cyanocobalamin, which is B vitamins. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to be
However
seeing
you say
that.
Cyanocobalamin.
Now you folks can see what I do in my spare time.
Psycho beans.
All right. Can you see this now?
We
Yes.
got it now. We got it going now.
Okay. Risks of a low-fat diet.
Yes.
Okie dokie. Let me see here real quick. So there we go. In green, low-fat diet led to lesser weight loss than a low-calorie diet. And furthermore, a low-fat diet resulted in an increase in blood lipids, and lipids are fat. So in other words, you had more fat in your blood by doing a low-fat diet. So now how smart is that?
Not too
Okay.
smart.
Exactly. Another study that was done, more weight loss was achieved with a Mediterranean and a low carbohydrate diet as compared to a low fat diet. Again, it's all about the fat. Long-term, very low fat diet is not favorable for safe weight loss. Why? Because everybody runs back to what they were doing before the time. So here's one, the role of fats in hormone function and production. And you've heard me talk about cholesterol and hormones. Study done with 33 women, and they found that within 2 months, the very low-fat diet led to a decrease in estradiol, testosterone, and some big fancy name over there as well. And a reduction in these hormones increases the risk of breast cancer. So if you're on a low-fat diet, you're going to lose hormones, and that's going to increase your risk of breast cancer. People, you need to eat more butter. Okay. Another one. After 3 months of a low-fat diet, there was significant reduction in estrogen, estradiol, and estrone. A reduction in sex hormones can lead to significant adverse effects, including cancer, menstrual cycle disorders, and weight gain. That's after 3 months on a low-fat diet. Just 3 months. And people have been living on these things for 30 years. So, crazy. And for the guys, there was a significant reduction in testosterone production when men consumed a very low-fat diet. And I can go on. I'm not going to read. That's insulin resistance worsened, blood cholesterol went up. A low carbohydrate diet helped reduce LDL, increase HDL, and improve insulin sensitivity. Okay. That's a low carbohydrate diet, not a low fat. So if you're doing a low carbohydrate, you're doing high fat. So a high fat diet helped reduce LDL, increase HDL, and improved insulin sensitivity. Oh, it's amazing. These findings suggest that men with lower fat intake have a higher risk of mortality than men with higher fat intakes. You've got a better chance of dying if you don't eat butter. So I can go on and on. Here we go. A low-fat diet led to a slowdown in metabolism and weight gain. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Here's one for children. A low-fat diet without a good composition of fatty acids led to impaired brain performance and diseases. And this is particularly true for young children since their brain is still growing. We're feeding our kids high carbohydrate breakfast. They're having cereals, they're having chocolate milk, they're having orange juice, pancakes, you name it. They go to school, they have freaking corn dogs, which is approved, along with pizza. And it's ridiculous. These poor kids. No wonder our kids aren't as smart as the old people. A healthy fat, low carbohydrate diet led to reduced risk of cognitive impairment. In other words, a low carbohydrate diet is a high fat diet, and that led to reduced risk of cognitive impairment. So if you're forgetting where you put your keys, you need to remember to eat more butter. All right. So, and there's more, blah, blah, blah. I can go on and on and on, but I'm not going to, because I know there's going to be 1,000 questions from the gang as soon as I finish and say any questions. All right. So there were some studies that was done showing low fat causes all these problems, things that I spoke about before we showed all that. So how much fat does a person need to eat is the question. And this is what I dealt with Sherry with yesterday. And I had to do her an actual visual. So her numbers were, she wanted to weigh 145 pounds. Deborah, you're writing this down.
I am 144 pounds,
145.
145.
So if you go do, there's a calorie calculator you can find on Google. Anyway, so for a 145-pound woman, she needs to eat right around 1,750 calories per day. Okay. That should be for that size woman. Now, if you're bigger, taller, whatever the case, if you want to weigh 160 pounds, your calorie intake will be a little bit more because you've got more body to feed. All right. But here's the secret. If you currently weigh 200 pounds, but you actually do need to weigh 160 pounds, don't work out your calorie intake for a 200-pound body, because then you're just going to be maintaining a 200-pound body. You need to eat for a 160-pound body. Okay? So your calories, instead of eating 2,000, you're going to eat 1,600. Okay. That's how you lose a bit of weight. So anyways, 1,750 calories was what she needed. Now, a proper human diet is a ratio of 1 to 2 protein to fat. In other words, you want to get about 80% of your calories must come from fat. So 80% of 1,750, I do believe, is 1,400. If Deborah does the math over there. 1,750 multiplied by 0.8. How much you got there?
1,400.
1,400. Man, this old brain is still working. Okay, so she needs to get 1,400 calories from fat. So what does that look like? Now, fat has a different amount of calories per gram than what protein and carbohydrates do. Protein and carbohydrates, for every 1 gram of protein or 1 gram of carbohydrates, Levon, you should remember this, there's 4 calories.
Yes.
Does it ring a bell?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So 4 calories per 1 gram of carbs and 1 gram of protein. But for 1 gram of fat, there's 9 calories. So if you take the 1,400 calories that she needs to eat, if you divide that by 9, that'll give you the number of grams of fat. So do that for us, Deborah. I think it comes out.
9 times what?
No, it's 1,400 divided by 9. No, I think it's 155.555.
Yeah.
So it's 155 grams of fat that she needs to eat. So do me another calculation real quick there, Deborah. 155 divided by 28.5.
Is 5.45.
So 5.5 ounces of fat is what she needs to eat per day. So what does that look like?
Of the 1,750 calories.
Of the 1,750 calories, she needs to eat a grand total of 155 grams
And
or
a
5.5
cream.
ounces of fat.
Coconut cream, right?
It could come from anything.
Yeah.
Okay, now there's fat in the meat. How much? I don't know. Ribeyes got the most fat.
Can you
Sorry?
overdo it on fat?
Can you overdo it on fat?
Can you?
No.
Okay.
No, because all that's going to happen is you're just going to poop it right out again. And that's why I say, if you get enough fat in your diet, plus a little bit extra, if by mistake, you are going to have such a smooth bowel movement. You won't even realize you passed a stool. Okay.
That could be dangerous, especially when you're driving a bus.
Oh boy. All right.
Well,
Adult
you know,
diapers,
you're
Deborah.
letting some airflow and.
Just adult diapers. There you go. Oh boy. Okay. So if
That was good.
okay, so when you go buy butter, some companies sell a big old square block of butter. Others sell flat block, if you will. And others, you can buy in that box, you can buy 4 little sticks of butter. Okay. So let's take half a pound of butter. So if it's the big block, it's half that block. If it's the sticks, it's only 2 sticks. Are you all with me? So what does 5.5 ounces of butter look like? Well, if you take 2 sticks of butter and you divide it up into 8 pieces, 5/8 is what you need to eat, or what she needs to eat anyway. She needs to eat 5/8 of that half pound of butter per day. That's her fat intake. So it sounds like a lot compared to what we've been taught over the last 50 years. Not so. But if that's how much energy your body requires, why are we depriving ourselves of it? Now, I've talked a lot about butter. There is coconut butter, there's coconut oil, there's coconut cream, there's coconut milk, there's bacon fat that you cook with, there's fat in the meat, all right? So that's why I say a good ratio, if you will. Whatever meat you're having, you should ideally have 2 portions of butter or 2 portions of fat compared to 1 portion of meat.
Yeah,
I know
I
it sounds like a
put
lot.
that much butter on top of my steak when I eat it.
But here's the thing. You're not going to manage to eat all that because there's going to be so much grease on there. You're going to be full before you finish that meat. All right. But my point is this. We aren't getting enough fat.
Right.
So if you can aim for the day to try and eat at least 1 stick of butter throughout the day, it's whether you're cooking it or you're putting it on your food or both, try and work through a minimum of 1 stick, one of those little 1-inch square sticks. Try and get through a minimum of 1 of those per day. At a minimum.
What's the size?
A half,
Okay.
a half pound of butter, two sticks of butter in a half pound.
Yeah.
You can buy it singly, but it makes more sense to buy a pound. It's got 4 sticks in it, so that'd be 4 days worth.
That's why you eat all the bacon.
Yeah. But then you need to make sure that the balance of your fat is coming from your meat. So you don't want to go for the really lean cuts of meat because they don't have much fat in them. Okay. So if you're going to go buy ground beef, you don't want to buy the 93.7 because there's no fat in there. You're going to buy the 80-20 because it's got more grease in it. Okay. So I hope that helps when it comes to the amount of fat you should eat. And you can all go do your own search on Google. How many calories a day for a male that needs to weigh 150 pounds? In my case, 190 pounds. How many calories do I need? Okay, and then I can just take 80% of that will give me the calories from fat that I need to get, and then divide that by 9 to give me what that looks like in the palm of my hand. How much fat is that? Okay, don't forget to divide by 9. All right. So let's talk about the protein ratio real quick and how to calculate that, because I can guarantee you, I'll put my head on a chopping block. Nobody's getting enough protein. Okay, so here's the formula. And it comes back to what is your ideal weight? What should you weigh? Not what do you currently weigh? So you could be underweight at the moment, you could be overweight at the moment. There is an ideal range of where you should be, you know, give or take 4 or 6 pounds either side of that. So let's work on a person that should weigh 150 pounds. Okay. And this isn't for everybody. This is going to be specific to you. So you have to go do your calculation
Okay,
for
so
how much protein.
Example.
So I'm going to use 150. All right. So you need to eat 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of ideal body weight per day. So 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of ideal body weight per day. So let's do the calculation. If I want to weigh 150 pounds, that means I need to eat 150 grams of protein. So that's pretty straightforward. So I haven't lost anybody yet. Hopefully not. Here's where the trick comes in. And you've got to pay attention to what I'm saying. Okay? If, and this is a big if you are going to get all your protein just from meat. Now, I'm not talking about eggs. I'm not talking about your protein shake. I'm talking meat only, whether it be beef, chicken, goat, duck, rabbit, whatever you folks eat in terms of meat, I don't care. Okay? Whatever portion of meat you put on your plate, only 25% of that is considered protein. So if you put a 1 pound piece of ribeye on your plate, only a 1/4 pound of that is protein. The other 3/4 is water, fat, connective tissue, all of this kind of stuff. All right? So, whatever size piece of meat or serving of meat or ground beef, whatever it is that you're eating, whatever portion size you have on your plate, only 1/4 of that is protein. So, how do I calculate how much or how big that piece of meat needs to be? Well, I need to multiply by 4. Because if only 1/4 of that meat is protein, I need to multiply by 4 to get the size of the piece of meat. Not so. Are you all with me? Hand in the air if you're with me.
So order the big steak.
Or do what?
The big steak.
Order the big steak,
What? Yep. Order the big one.
the
Okay.
tomahawk.
So, yeah, we can't all pay $80 for a piece of steak. So stick with me here real quick. So you need to get, or this particular instance, this example we're using, we need 150 grams of protein. So we need to multiply that by 4 to get the size of the piece of meat I need to go put in the pan. So it becomes a 600 gram piece of meat that I need to go cook. And we talk raw meat. When you're talking weight of meat, it's always raw. Okay, uncooked. So I need to go get a 600 gram piece of meat and slap that in the pan. That will give me my 150 grams of protein. Does it make sense to everybody? And I need this to make sense. You guys have to follow this. That way, because if you understand this, then you'll get enough protein. If you don't understand it, you're going to shortchange yourselves. And you're not going to get enough protein. All right? And you're going to start losing your hair and all sorts of weird stuff. Start losing muscle. So we need to make sure we're getting enough protein. So 600 grams, if I convert that to ounces, I'm just going to round up grams to 30 grams to an ounce. We're looking at a 20-ounce piece of meat. Okay. So we're looking at a 20-ounce steak, or we're looking at 20 ounces of ground beef, or 20 ounces of, goodness, I don't even know what other meat there is. 20 ounces of rabbit. It's about 5 rabbits.
Chicken wings.
Chicken wings. That's a whole KFC bucket full of chicken wings. Um, So, all right. Do you folks understand what I'm saying? If you're gonna get your protein just from
Which-
meat,
Which
then you
is
have to
1.32 pounds of meat.
1.3.
So
Yeah.
it's,
And
Huh?
during the day.
600 grams is 1.3 pounds.
Yeah.
Meat.
Right. I'm trying to do the conversion thing.
Thank you.
yeah, because 450 grams is a pound. So we're looking at a pound and a third.
Mhm.
Ideal body.
1.3 pounds of meat. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But now, here's the deal. That's for the whole day. That's not per meal. Okay, that's for the entire day.
What if you eat one meal a day?
Then fine. Then do that. That's 100% okay. That's 100%. And you know what? If you're eating that amount of meat with the appropriate amount of butter with it, once a day is going to be fine. All right. You will have enough energy to get you through to your next pound and a third of meat tomorrow. Okay. But for some people that can't do it, spread it out through the day. You know, do it in 2 or 3 portions, you know, smaller portions. Okay. But that's, like I say, that's per day. It's not per meal. Because if you do it per meal, you're going to have a hard time eating 1.3 pounds 3 times a day. That's 4.5 pounds of meat in a day.
Is that always the formula? Whatever the grams are times 4?
Only when it applies to meat.
Only, yeah, applies to meat, yeah.
One.
Okay.
Now, if you're going to eat eggs with that, each
Mhm.
egg has 6 grams of protein. So now what happens is, so you take your goal for the day of 150 grams or whatever your weight is supposed to be, 160, 175, 120, I don't know. You figure out your weight. But you take your grams per day, excuse me, that you need to eat. If you have an egg, that's 6 grams of protein. So you take your 150 minus 6. Now you're down to 144.
And our protein shake?
Minus 18. Ding, ding.
Right.
Now you're down to 126.
Yeah.
If you're going to have another 4 eggs, that's another 24. So now you're down to whatever, 100 grams a day of that you still need to get. All right. So whatever your protein is, deduct that off your total. And then if you're left with 60 grams by 4 o'clock in the afternoon of protein that you still need to get, well, that's 10 eggs. Done. You got your protein in for the day. Or you can take that 60, multiply that by 4, that gives you 240 grams. That's a half a pound of meat. So you can go get,
Bacon, uncured bacon. How much can we eat?
you know what, Wade? Go to town, see how much you can eat. Try it. Do an experiment.
Okay.
Okay, I guarantee you're not going to go through a whole packet. Guaranteed.
You fry it up, it's like, I look at it and go, are you sure you're gonna make it between Richard and I? Cause I'm gonna go, "Arr." Yeah, me too. I'm gonna eat the whole.
The thing with a high fat intake is it's going to fill you up, okay? Because it's so calorie dense. It's got so much energy in it. Your body's like, yes, I've died and gone to heaven. This guy's giving me butter for breakfast, butter for dinner, butter in my coffee. You know, this guy's just gone crazy.
So I have another question. So if you eat more than that amount of protein, are you okay? I mean, is it okay to eat more than that amount?
Yeah, your body will just, whatever it doesn't use, it'll just,
Right,
See
but
what
that's
happens.
not gonna mess up the whatever, you
Ideal
know,
weight.
ideal weight that you're trying to get to, right?
not typically, because protein can become glucose. It can become sugar in a process called gluconeogenesis. But that typically happens when you don't have enough fuel coming into your system. If you don't eat enough butter or fat, whatever,
Then it'll
wherever
evolve.
your fat is coming from, if you don't eat enough fuel, your body will then use the protein as a fuel, but it converts it to glucose, which then pushes up your blood sugar, which then raises your insulin, which then slows down your leptin, which slows down your weight loss. So yes, you can have too much protein if you're not having enough butter,
You're not having enough good fat.
enough fat. So
Right.
if you get your 80% of your calories from the fat, the chances of overeating on protein are pretty slim. Okay. I wouldn't worry about it. Eating 2 pounds instead of 1.3 pounds. It's okay. All right. I know Levon might be able to pack away 2 pounds in one sitting.
Yeah, I've seen her do
Levon,
it.
Levon's got a bottomless stomach. But not everybody can eat like Levon. All right. So some people just need to do it in small bites. If that's what you got to do, that's what you got
I
to
need
do.
to envision elephants,
Yeah.
small bites.
So this lady I was chatting with yesterday, she said when she's finished eating, an hour and a half later, she's hungry again. I said, well, Sherry, then you aren't eating enough fat. And while I was there, we went through this. I explained, you got to get butter. Put butter. When you put a piece of steak on your plate and you want to have a side, make butter your side. All right. Cut yourself 2/4 inch thick slices of butter off the block, not the little skinny one. Cut 2 nice thick slices, put them on the plate. Cut a little piece of butter, stick it on your fork, stick it in your meat, take that. All right. Get butter that's cold, not room temperature. The colder one is nicer because it doesn't just melt and run on the bottom of your plate. It sits there nicely on the side, and you can cut little pieces off as you're chewing and eating your meat. So anyway, so she had a piece of leftover steak from breakfast, and this was now lunchtime. She was hungry, so she just warmed it up, and I see her eating, and I looked at her plate. I said, Sherry, where's your butter? She already forgot because she hasn't been doing it. She hasn't been taught long enough and hard enough, and she hasn't done it often enough to remember to put butter on the plate when you're eating your meat. So she wasn't getting enough fat in her diet. That's why she was hungry 2 hours after eating, a 3/4 pound steak for breakfast. So because the protein isn't really a fuel. Its primary role is to build you, to fix you, to repair you. But the fat is what's going to feed you. It's going to keep you energized. That is your fuel source, is the fat, not the protein. All right. And if we don't get enough fat, your body will burn that protein as a fuel and not have enough left over to build you and fix you and repair you, make your hair grow, make your nails nice and strong and healthy, all this kind of stuff. Okay. So let's talk about butter real quick. I know some people are a bit worried about butter. Do I do salted butter, unsalted butter? Do salted butter. All right. We have to get salt in our diet. So let's look at things like, just some trivial information. It's got nothing to do with fat. Salt, made up of 2 chemicals, sodium and chlorine. NaCl. Who remembers science from back in the day? NaCl, sodium chloride. Not so? 2 very dangerous items when they're on their own. Sodium, very volatile. Chlorine will kill you. But you combine them and you get salt, table salt, that we sprinkle on our food and we eat it and it doesn't cause any problems. All right, so we have to get salt in our diet. Why? Let's go to the stomach environment real quick. What acid gets released into the stomach when you're eating?
Hydrochloric.
Hydrochloric acid.
And what's the chemical formula for that, Levon?
HC.
L.
L,
Hydrogen and chlorine.
chlorine, yeah.
Where do you get the chlorine? You get it from the sodium chloride, the salt, the NaCl.
Uh-huh.
That you need that Cl to make the Cl that's in the hydrogen, the hydrochloric acid. That's your stomach acids. It's the same molecule, the Cl and the Cl, the chlorine. Okay. You need the salt to make sure you've got enough chloride in your system to make stomach acid, to digest your food properly. And we've been told, don't eat too much salt. No more than a teaspoon of salt a day. It's going to give you high blood pressure. So over the last 50 years, people have cut salt out their diets. And what has skyrocketed? Reflux.
Oh, acid reflux, got it.
Why? Because there's not enough chloride in the system to make the hydrochloric acid, to break down food, to keep your stomach pH low, to keep the valve closed, to stop fumes coming up. Crazy. Okay, so that's got nothing to do with fat, but I thought that was important to note. Salt
Very.
is super important. And again, it's the same as with butter and fats. I challenge anybody to try and overeat on salt.
What about water retention when you have too much salt?
Don't blame the salt for what the sugar did. Water retention is a sugar problem. It's not a salt problem. And I say it's sugar because that glucose raises your insulin, and your insulin messes with your kidneys, and your kidneys hold on to the fluids because water follows minerals and water follows sugar. So if you have excess sugar in your system, water is going to follow it. You're going to have extra water in your bloodstream. You're going to have extra water in your intracellular fluid, in your cells, because there's so much sugar in there. Hence the swollen ankles. I guarantee you, if you cut out the refined carbohydrates, the sugars, the honey, the agave syrup, the agave sweeteners, cut that out. Don't do anything different. Okay? Don't do anything different. Cut those out and watch your swollen ankles go down. Guaranteed. Okay? And when the swollen ankles have gone down, add a lot of salt into your diet and see if your swollen ankles come back. They won't. So water follows minerals. So if you have too much salt, if you salt your food like crazy before you even tasted it on your plate, like my grandmother did, okay, she would sit down and by the time she was finished, her food was white. It was just covered in salt. And Sylvia, I'm going to go see her. In fact, Levon, when we're in South Africa, at the end of the trip, I'm going to go see Sylvia. She's 97 years old. And she's been putting salt in her food for 97 years. Right? She's still going strong. Anyway, my point is this. If you eat too much salt, your body will get rid of the excess salt. It has a mechanism to do that, and it's in the kidneys. It will dump that salt into your colon area. Water follows minerals. So the water will come out of your system and go into your colon area to follow that salt. And you just poop out the extra salt. All right. You sweat it out, and your kidneys filter it, but the excess goes to your colon. That's why I say you can try overeat salt. The body's just going to dump it. It'll keep what it needs and dump the rest. Same with fat. It'll use everything until it's done what it needs to do, and the rest is just going to go down the toilet. You know you're not getting enough fat in your diet when you have a very hard, dry stool, bowel movement. You know you are getting enough fat when you have a nice, soft, easy, smooth bowel movement. Then you're getting enough fat in your diet. Okay? So,
Thank you, Tony.
one more thing. Let's talk about butter. What's in butter? just out of curiosity, is there anybody in the group
There's
that
milk.
doesn't like butter?
No.
See,
we love
everybody
butter.
loves it. Everybody loves it. But
I
we
order
don't-
bowls of it when I go to Outback.
Yeah, we've been told don't eat this stuff. It's going to kill you. Well, it's killing us when we're not eating it. So let's just apply some logic here. Okay, we aren't eating butter, we aren't eating salt, but we all have problems that they say we're going to get if we do eat these two things. But we're not eating them. You can go put up some charts over the last 50 years. Meat consumption has gone down, fat consumption has gone down, heart disease risk has gone up. So it's, yeah. Anyway, so butter. Now we've all heard that if you eat fiber, your body chews on that fiber, it ferments it, and it spits out short-chain fatty acids. One of those being butyrate. And butyrate is this wonder thing that's in your system because it does all sorts of wonderful things. But you know what? The Latin word, there's a Latin word called butyrum. And if you go look up butyrum, B-U-T-Y-R-U-M, in Latin, that means butter. Now, there's a chemical in butter called butyrate, which is the same thing that the fiber produces when the bacteria chew on it. So, you can get butyrate from your butter. And what is butyrate? It's a short-chain fatty acid, and it's an anti-cancer molecule. It's going to help fight cancer. It's going to help with blood sugar and insulin resistance control. It's going to feed all the little colon cells. So eat fiber because it's good for your colon. Well, I can tell you the same thing. You've got the same ingredient. Eat butter. It's good for your colon. It's going to feed the colon cells. It improves your digestive health, your gut system, your digestive tract, everything that goes where the food goes. Butter is going to help improve that because of the butyrate that's in there. All right. It's going to help to decrease inflammation. So butter will decrease inflammation. And it will also boost your metabolism. Because there's all this energy coming in, your body's going to burn it and use it. Good to go. Butter also has CLA, which is conjugated linoleic acid. That's one of them chemicals that we need in our bodies. That helps to prevent bone loss. It also helps fight cancer. And it also has anti-inflammatory properties. So here's just two so far chemicals in butter that are anti-cancer and fight inflammation. So we don't need the sugars. We need the fat. Heart health. Butter is a good source of HDL. Butter will increase your HDL. It has antioxidants. It's got vitamin D, E, selenium, iodine, vitamin A, lecithin, all the good stuff. All of that. It's in butter. What else we got? Butter will help, butyrate helps protect against inflammation. It has higher EPA and DHA, your omega-3s, we mentioned that earlier. And it helps to control arthritis and eczema. All those achy joints. And then it's also good for the eyes because butter has beta-carotene in it, which is the precursor to vitamin A, and vitamin A is good for the eyes. So that's where you can get fat from your fridge. Now, where can you get fat from your catalog? Your Neolife catalog.
Salmon oil.
Salmon oil. All right. Salmon oil is a
Vitamin
cholesterol,
A.
vitamin A, vitamin E,
Vitamin E, all the oils.
threonine.
Lecithin.
Lecithin, yeah.
There you go. So, if you're scared, if you're scared about eating all this extra fat and butter, well, definitely, even if you are eating real close to your amount of fat that you need to get in per day, I would still take all of the supplements. I would take the threonine, the fish oils, all right? A couple of vitamin E's throughout the week. Well, couple in America means 2. Numerous, put it that way. Johnny, when you guys say couple, do you mean 2? Or do you mean anything more than 1?
2.
Just hold your space bar down.
Couple in general. I mean, I know intuitively it's 2, but sometimes I use it as a euphemism. Like if I say, I'm just going for a couple of these, I can stretch it to 3, 4, 5,
12, 15,
pushing
yeah.
my luck. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. But yeah, I've learned in America, when you say couple, you're talking about 2.
Right.
I found it very interesting. We are not long, and I'm watching the weather, and the weatherman says, we're going to have temperatures of 102 for the next 3 days. I'm thinking, 3 days? What the heck? What kind of a number is that? 3 days. I'd never heard 3 days. And what?
Days or so.
But anyway, so I learned real quick. Couple means 2. Anyway, so back to the vitamin E. I would add a few of those in for the week. Salmon oils, definitely. I take my vitamin A religiously for my mucus lining, so I don't have that postnasal drip. All right. So there's plenty of things we can
You
do.
take a day, Tony, your vitamin A. You take 3.
4. Yeah. All right. So there's plenty we can do in terms of what's in our fridge.
Vitamin E.
All right. There's nothing really in the pantry because there's nothing worthwhile in the pantry, but everything that we eat needs to be in the fridge so it can stay fresh. And then the supplements, just purely because, like I say, unless you know exactly who the farmer is and exactly what he's doing with those cows, you aren't guaranteed of a single thing in terms of quality. So supplement along with your top quality meats. Add the extra omega-3s in there for sure. All right. Help bring down that inflammation. Bring down those inflammatory markers in your body. Salmon oil, 68% in 8 weeks that it reduces inflammation. That's huge. That is huge. All right. So if you know people that are battling with things like inflammation, extra salmon oil, extra butter in their diet. But I will give you one cautionary warning here. If a person's on a high carbohydrate diet, they cannot go and add so much extra butter to their diet. It's going to cause major, major weight gain problems. All right. You have to pick a fuel source. You cannot do both. You've got to pick one or the other one. You cannot do both. You cannot have the toast with a half a block of butter on it. You have just a half a block of butter, not the toast. All right. So was there a question in the room there?
I have a question.
Fire away.
If you did all this and your good cholesterol, let's say, was average, and you did all this for a month, is there any studies how much that might increase good HDL?
Everybody's a bit different because of the different requirements within your body, but it will definitely go up. By how much? I couldn't tell you a number, okay? It's going to go up. If you're running at 50, I wouldn't be surprised after a month if you're clocking in here around 60 to 65. if you're doing this 100% according to the book, you could easily get to 65, 75 on HDL. And if you cut out all the carbohydrates, your triglycerides are going to nosedive. And those are the only two I really worry about is HDL and triglycerides. LDL, I couldn't give a rip about the LDL other than the particle size of the cholesterol. Are they big, fluffy particles, or are they tiny little particles like this that's going to get stuck everywhere? All right. Your LDL number means nothing. Nothing. Don't even worry about it, other than how big are the particles. And there's a test for that. It's called LDLP. And you can have it tested. And Levon spoke about Cindy earlier. The cholesterol numbers are just, her HDL is stupid high. Her triglycerides are low. Her LDL, I think doctors said was borderline, blah, blah, blah. But she did the particle size test, and the small, dense particle numbers are low, which is perfect. And the big particles are, the count is high, which is also perfect. I mean, if you take a cup of some sort, coffee mug or a candle with some poisonous wax in it, let's assume the poisonous wax wasn't in there. This thing's empty. How many golf balls can you fit in this cup? Three or four?
Yeah.
Right? How many ball bearings can you fit in here? About 3,000 to 4,000. But the volume is still the same inside this cup. Okay? So the amount of cholesterol in here is the same. But it's just the particle sizes that are different. The big golf ball size particles are awesome. They're not going to get stuck anywhere. They're big and fluffy. They're going to bounce around. They're going to do their thing. The little ball bearing size cholesterol that's in there, that's getting stuck everywhere. You've got scar tissue. You've got tears and cuts and what have you on the inside of your arteries. Those little tiny little cholesterol molecules will get stuck in there and form a clot. And they'll start building up and causing plaque deposits and all that kind of stuff, along with all the sugar that you're eating, because you're still in the standard American diet. That is what causes heart disease problems. All right. It's not the cholesterol. It's like blaming the fireman for the fire, because every time a house burns down, there's a fireman there. So it must be his fault. Every time somebody has a heart attack, there's cholesterol blockages. So they're blaming the cholesterol. But what caused the cholesterol to get blocked up over there? That's what you got to ask. So speaking to a lady the other day, and she's worried because her cholesterol numbers they're good, but she's got one that's on the high side. And she said her husband was kind of on board with what we're doing because he likes this idea. But when he saw her numbers were a little bit high, he got worried because he's had, I think, a triple bypass surgery already. And I said, yeah. When was this? She said, no, this was a while back when the diet still was a bit out of whack. So I said, yeah, it's not the fat, it's not the meat, it's the previous diet. She says, you know what? His cardiologist said to him, you have this problem because of the amount of sugar you eat. I said, you better hold on to that cardiologist because he knows what he's talking about. He did not blame the butter. He didn't blame the fat on the meat. He didn't blame the high cholesterol intake. He blamed the sugar intake for this man's heart problems. And he's 100% correct. All right. So you have to choose. Am I doing sugar or am I doing butter? You cannot do both. You cannot do both. Pick one. All right.
I like what you're saying about the fat in the butter, but do you ever get censored by YouTube?
I haven't done any of this stuff on YouTube.
Okay.
Probably because I know what's going to happen. And I'm not going to go through all of that drama, just have everything cut off. So I like to keep it in the group. I like to do personal and teach people hands-on in their kitchen. Show them, this is how much butter you need to eat. And I'll literally cut that block of butter and say, Sherry, you have to finish this butter by the end of today. So they can get a visual. All right.
Everybody sit down. I'm trying to butter you up.
Yeah. So
We got
anyways,
sourpuss into
Yeah.
some
Excuse me.
good attitudes.
What kind of butter do you suggest to eat?
grass-fed butter.
Beg your pardon? Grass fed?
Butter from grass-fed cows.
I mean,
Vital Farms, I think it's
spider, that's my favorite.
Vital is one.
Vital
Um,
Farms.
Costco, the Costco brand says grass-fed.
Spiderfarm.com.
Vito.
Yeah, Vital, Vital. We buy all our eggs from them, and I see they also have butter. So yeah, here's the thing: if you cannot get grass-fed butter, you're still okay doing the other one. You're just going to be missing quite a lot of nutrients. So you're going to have to just bulk up, or add some extra nutrient supplements into that. But ideally, try and get the grass-fed butter. It is a better quality. It's got more nutrients in it. And I shouldn't say this, but that way you won't have to spend as much on supplements as what you might have to if you don't do this. All right. I know we're in the business of selling supplements and what have you, but at the same time, my heart, Yvette's heart, and I know Levon as well. I don't want to just sell you a supplement and not solve your problem. Okay. I want you to get better. I want you to live healthy. I want you to live vibrant. Enjoy life. Eat the damn butter. All right. It's going to keep you alive. It's going to taste good. Your food is going to taste amazing. So you'll spend $20 less on Neolife supplements. You can buy $20 worth of butter. Okay. But still, we still need a supplement. Absolutely. Add the omega-3s, add the threonine, 100%. Add those things into your diet. Because like I said, I don't really trust too much of these grass-fed labels, organic labels, all that kind of stuff. It's when the government's involved, it becomes a bit of a challenge. I don't know who to trust anymore. So other than Neolife, that's why I say stick to your Neolife supplements. Add those oils into the diet. The protein shake, good quality protein. Okay. Make sure you're getting your numbers in for the day. All right. Anybody got any questions?
Well, thank you. I'm glad I came in. I don't understand the whole thing, but I need fat.
You need fat, bottom line, you need the
I need
fat.
more fat. I have to take it. Oh my, I didn't
Yes.
realize that.
And
Yeah,
Tony,
because
that's the reason why the Atkins diet kind of crashed and burned, is because they didn't have in their focus the ratio of fat and
That's
protein.
right.
They only focused on protein.
That's right.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And if you don't get enough fat, you're going to be hungry. And your body's going to be searching for fuel. It needs a power supply. And if you don't give it some, it will take it from the protein and it'll take it from your muscles. Yeah. So
Okay.
make sure you top up that tank with fat. Mix your protein shakes with some heavy whipping cream. Put a 50-50 mix of water and heavy whipping cream or coconut cream. All right.
I use coconut butter and coconut.
I
Yeah.
use coconut oil too. I put coconut oil in my shake.
I've done that, but it goes all funky because as soon as it gets cold, that coconut oil just becomes these little balls and you got that extra texture in the shake.
Hey, I've got a great recipe. Coconut oil, coconut cream, vanilla shake, and frozen espresso cubes. Oh, so good.
That's an almond joy. Chocolate shake in a chocolate shake. With
Yeah.
some almonds. That's an almond.
I
joy.
really like the espresso cubes in the vanilla shake. It's so good. I like
What
to
are
make a pot
espresso
of
cubes?
espresso. I make a pot of espresso and I pour it in ice cube trays and I freeze it.
Okay.
And use that in my shake.
All right. There's something else you can do. Talking about ice trays. You can make, what do they call it? Butter toffee. No, not butter toffee. Butter candy. I don't know. take unsalted butter, put it in your pot or whatever, and just put that, they turn the heat on, doesn't have to be very low, but not high, and cook that butter until the proteins in there start going brown.
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
And then keep stirring it, because now the proteins are starting to cook, so they're going to kind of settle to a certain degree. So once that's happened, get your little ice trays out, keep stirring that mixture and pour it into your ice trays. Put that in the fridge, and then they'll set. And you can just pop one of those out and just eat an ice cold sweetened butter treat. It's just 100% butter. That's all it is. So if you're trying to get your butter in for the day, that's one way of doing it.
Wow.
Yeah. If you make scrambled eggs, put a tablespoon or two of butter in the pan, scramble up your eggs, serve it, put a tablespoon or two of butter on top of your scrambled eggs. Then it'll melt into those eggs and eat that. That way you're working your way through your butter allotment for the day. Okay? Get creative. And if you have to, just eat the butter.
Wow, wow. Any other questions on the Zoom or in the room before I click off the recording? Anybody would like to ask a question while the experts in the house?
All right. Well then, it was
How, hold on,
awesome
we
chatting
have
with
a
you.
question.
Oh, we
How is,
do.
yes, how is high fat good for the gallbladder?
Okay, so glad you asked. When you eat a very fatty diet, your liver is going to make a whole lot more bile because it knows there's fat coming. All right. And because you now have this bile in the gallbladder and your diet is 80% fat, that food, when it comes into your mouth, through your stomach, and it comes out of your stomach into your small intestine, that's when the bile duct opens up, the valve opens up, and it flushes all this bile down there to go and take care of the fat that's now in your small intestine. It goes in there to dissolve it and absorb it and all this kind of stuff. So if you are eating a high-fat diet, that process is happening regularly. You are constantly draining that gallbladder. You're flushing it to pump all that bile into your small intestine to digest the fat. And then it makes more and it stores it. And then the next time you eat something, it's loaded with fat. It flushes it out again. So the chances of you getting gallstones greatly diminished because the stuff is moving. You're pumping in new bile. 8 hours later, you're eating, you're draining that gallbladder again. And your body's now making more bile to put in there. You eat breakfast, it drains it. So you're recycling your bile real quick through your gallbladder.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not going to have much of a chance to build up gallstones. All right. So
What if you already have a gallbladder challenge, though?
what's the challenge?
I mean, what if you just have pain in that area?
You have pain in that area. It's probably a gallstone that's causing that sort of pain.
That's what I'm saying. So if you're adding high fat, like, what is that gonna do?
It's going to flush it. All right. Because if you have a high fat diet, there's a greater demand for more bile in the small intestine. So it's going to try and release more and more to take care of it. So people on a low fat diet, they don't have much fat coming into their small intestine. So there's just a little bit of bile being released. But if you have a very fat heavy meal, your body knows there's a bunch of fat here. We need more than just a drop or two of bile. We need half the gallbladder full. And it pumps it all down there. So hopefully, it's like if you do the Hilde-Clark gallbladder flush.
I was going to mention that.
All right. Essentially, what you're doing there is you're drinking the Epsom salts because you want to have a bowel movement. All right. You're overdosing on magnesium big time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a set program to do this. So you drink this horrible magnesium stuff. What is it? Epsom salts.
Yes,
Because
it is.
you want to have diarrhea essentially. And then I don't know when it is, later that night or first thing in the morning or both, I forget exactly. But you're going to drink, Levon, is it like a 3/4 cup of olive oil
And lemon.
and some lemon, okay? And the reason you're
Yeah.
drinking this 3/4 cup of olive oil is because you want all this fat coming into your system. So your gallbladder is going to say, holy cow, look at all this. And it's flush it. It's going to open up the floodgates and it's going to drain that gallbladder to get bile in there to get rid of this 3/4 cup of olive oil you just chugged down.
Yes.
And then you want the diarrhea part because now that's going to get into your colon area and you want to get that out of you. And that's where the Epsom salt comes in. You are going to get that stuff out of you. All right. And I will tell you this, if you do the Hilda Clark gallbladder flush program, when you do go to the bathroom that morning, be sure to take your camera with you and take pictures of what came out of you.
And go
You-
and buy a colander at the Dollar General and let it flush in the colander and go gold mining.
You will be amazed what comes out of you.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll flush, but I don't
colander.
All those gallstones.
Now, with
Listen,
the fat,
not
can I just eat butter, or can I eat like coconut and avocado?
That she wants to know the other oil choices. Absolutely. Coconut
can-
oil,
yeah.
olive oil, avocado oil,
Yeah.
MCT oil, tallow, chicken fat, beef fat, that's the
bacon
tallow,
fat, lard.
bacon fat, lard. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just find it easier for us when we cook up a steak. I cook it up in some butter, I put it on my plate, I pour that melted butter on there, and then I cut me a nice thick slice of butter on the side, and I take bites of that along with my piece of meat. I like to keep things simple. So does my wife. We don't want to complicate things. So, shopping for us is easy. We go to the back of the store, grab some meat, scoot further down, make sure we got enough butter, head out. So grocery shopping is real quick. But yeah, olive oil cold. You don't want to cook with it. Avocado oil is fine. Bacon fat to cook in is fine. Coconut milk, coconut cream, put some of that in your shake.
Yeah.
Go to town.
Yep.
Okay. Cottage cheese, whole milk cottage cheese. One
Mhm.
serving has got like, I think 5 grams of fat and 13 grams of protein in a serving. And a serving is a half a cup.
Yep. And good.
Nobody
Coke
eats
is my
just a
favorite
half a
brand.
cup of cottage cheese.
Yeah.
All right. So if you have a cup of cottage cheese, you're getting 10 grams of fat and 26 grams of protein out of a cup of cottage cheese.
Mm.
Great way to get fat and protein. Okay. So jump online, shop around, ask questions.
And wasn't there a cancer protocol that included cottage cheese because of the fat and protein that was in that cottage cheese? Yeah, it was a program, a German. Yeah, the German protocol for if you had the C word, then you would take this cottage cheese and mix oil with it, and because it has the protein and the fats in it.
Yeah.
Question over here to
Yes, sir.
The fat and extra salt that you can have on this, and your kidneys is gonna get rid of the waste if you have too much of it, we said. Could that help anybody that had kidney stone intentions?
Kidney stones are a bit of a challenge.
They're calcium.
Yeah.
With the
So
salt, in other words, with the salt and fat, break it down.
no, I don't think that will necessarily. Okay, so if there's an existing kidney stone, it's not going to make it any difference to get it out and pass it down and pee it out. Okay, what we've got to look at is how to prevent them from happening. And for the most part, and there's a few variations, but for the most part, oxalates are the problem that causes the kidney stones. Now, some people are more prone to getting kidney stones than others. I've never had one. Yvette and I, for the last 32 years, we've eaten the same kind of food, except when she was on her Weight Watchers plan, which was a waste of money. My point is, for the most part, we've eaten pretty much the same food over the last 30 years. I've never had a kidney stone. In the time that I've known Yvette, she's probably had 4 or 5 of them. Okay. She has a problem with the oxalates that's in some of the vegetables, the leafy stuff, the spinach, that kind of stuff. And Yvette used to eat a bunch of salads because we've got to eat salad, good for you. All right, blah, blah, blah. So Yvette made these. Yvette's salads look like Levant salads. If you've ever seen Levant salad, all right, that's what a salad looks like in my house. It's a work of art. Now, if I'm making it, there's not going to be one. But my point is this: Yvette had a harder time with the oxalates in the salad than what I did. So some people are prone to that. What happens is the oxalates prevent the calcium absorption out of the blood. So you're left with that calcium molecule in the bloodstream. And eventually that builds up and then makes this little crystal that then goes through your kidneys all the way down to the toilet, and it hurts like a son of a gun from what I've heard. So the idea here is to try and stop that from happening. So if a person is getting kidney stones on a regular basis, 1 every 5 years, stop eating some of the greens with the oxalates in them. All right. Find out which foods have oxalates in them and then don't eat those. All right. Like I say, not everybody has that problem, but if a person is prone to getting kidney stones, I would definitely take a look at the cause. And the cause is 90% of the time, it's oxalates. And it's not the wrong type of calcium that plays a role in it, but it's the fact that the oxalates prevents the calcium from being absorbed. Even our calcium won't be absorbed because the oxalates prevent calcium absorption.
How do you spell that, oxalates?
OX.
OXALATES.
Tony, even over phosphoric acid, I mean, somebody that's addicted to Mountain Dews all day long, that just gets one kidney stone after the other and doesn't touch a salad, doesn't eat any vegetables.
Then it's,
I mean, I've personally known them.
Yeah, and that's why I say most people. All right. Now you say he doesn't eat salads, but the other junk that he is putting in his body is causing a similar problem. All right. That's why I say oxalates is 90%.
Okay.
Or kidney stones are from oxalates. 80% comes from oxalates. The other 15-20% could be other causes like the Mountain Dew plus other junk coming into the system. But if you're eating a proper human diet or a human appropriate diet, which is proteins and fats and what have you, good quality stuff, and you're not putting all these excess vegetables and salads into your system and sodas, that's going to greatly reduce some of the challenges that we have. Because remember, I did a talk a while ago on chemicals in our plants that aren't favorable to a lot of people. The tannins, the oxalates, the lectins, the phytates, all these sort of things. There is a way to get rid of it by cooking it and heating it. Some of that goes away. But if a person is still susceptible to it, then don't eat it. And I've been telling folks for a long time now, if you're eating a food and it hurts you, stop eating that food.
Like nightshades and different ones. Yep.
Yeah.
Very good. Deborah, she left, but I think
She's got her hand up. Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead, Deborah.
Yes. Listen, I forgot before I left to say an early happy birthday to Tony. Tomorrow's his birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah. I had to jump back on here and tell you in case I don't get to talk to you. Happy birthday.
All right. So if you folks have got your pen and paper, write this down. I'll give you my address.
So you were born Friday 13th.
I was born on Friday the 13th. Yeah.
That's because you were intended to split hell wide open, right? In terms of shaking the gates of hell.
So write down my address and you can overnight my gift to me.
I'm gonna have it for you in Hawaii.
Just seeing all of you folks in Hawaii is enough gift.
Yeah, and Yvette's birthday is right after yours.
Yvette's on the 22nd, next week, Sunday.
Yeah.
While we're in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fighting.
Yep.